to do now, because I've just never had this problem. I've had a lightning strike before, but this was before anything was able to be saved. They didn't have Microsoft 365. They didn't have Atticus. They didn't have anything that long ago. And but now there are methods, and I'm going through the steps of downloading to my phone. It's just more inconvenient that way while I'm trying to get a new computer that
Right.
does the things that you want to do, because you don't want to just say, press to buy and then find out, wait a second, that doesn't have the capacity that I quite needed. And,
Yeah.
I don't have the audio, because I'm trying to reestablish my podcast, because I had a podcast that was called Forward the Number Two Extraordinary, and I saved the URL. So it's still a .com, and it's out there. You can even see the old episodes as a real estate interviewer talking to people from all over the world about just things that were pretty extraordinary. But I figured I can do this with you, authors, editors, publishers, because marketers, everybody that's involved, they're just tens of thousands of people in the industry, in the business. And I think especially that it would be good for first-time writers, people who have said, because how many people do you see that, run into you and go, oh, wow, that's so cool that you have all those books. I was thinking about writing a book. Should I just forget about it? And I always try to encourage people, if you got a story you need to tell, you should tell it. Just get it down on paper, and because you can't edit a blank page. You got to just put it there.
Exactly. Hey, before we go on, I just want to say, Keith down below, or you're looking at the comments, Keith, he and Diana do this Indie LitCon in Indianapolis. I went to it this year. It was phenomenal.
Oh, okay.
It was the first one they'd ever done, and it was phenomenal. They had, I don't remember how many authors there. I want to say like 100 authors there, and it was the first one they'd ever done, and they put it together 3 months prior to the date. So I'm like, I can't even wait to see what they're going to do next year. Anyway, he just invited you. He said he'd love to have another author there that does clean romance. It's hard to find people that are writing clean stuff anymore. So he just invited you to that. If you're not already friends with him, make sure you are friends with him.
Sure. Well, he can if he can just look me up on TikTok and just send the friend request, I'm more than happy to follow back.
I'm sure he's already following you, because he just
that's
invited
fine.
you. So
I just didn't want to mess with my screen, because I don't want anything else to go wrong while we're on.
I know, right? I tell you, after an experience like you and I just went through, you're almost scared to do anything. It's crazy.
Exactly. But you have to take things one at a time. I'm wearing my shirt today from Norway. I want you to see this.
Okay. Oh wow.
The Llama Whisperer.
Okay.
My wife got me the shirt because we went to Norway. It was one of those Norwegian fjord cruises where it's kind of the once in a lifetime. And one of the excursions was at the end of the longest fjord in all of Norway, in all of the world. And the guy there was English, and he and his wife bought a little farm and raised llamas. And then it's become a tourist attraction in this little town, Skolden. And I recommend it highly to anybody who happens to be on one of those cruises, because it was outstanding. In fact, I posted the video of walking Wilma, a stately 6'5" llama with her ears, down this 2-mile path, and then exchanging with another gentleman there for his llama. Now, Wilma was taller and, very, walking along with me, just like I thought it was going to be, like a dog. Oh no, the new llama, Toby, had some racehorse in. That boy was ready to go. So we were starting at the back of 30 people and llamas, and he was racing in and out on this little narrow rocky path. And I'm thinking, oh, sorry about that. Sorry, he's trying to get to the front. And he finally made it to about number 3, and he kind of looked at me when we got back to the pasture, and he looked kind of discouraged, like, hey, Grandpa, if you'd been able to keep up,
Oh my.
we could have won.
That's funny. That's funny. That's a cute story. If you're just joining us, I'm author Casey Mitchell. I write multiple genres, and then a month or so ago, I started this particular page for TikTok for the sole purpose of just promoting and supporting other indie authors. So that's what we do on Friday night. Every Friday night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, I do an interview with the author, and that's what we're doing tonight. I also do book schmivaways. Have to be careful how you say things on here. I almost said the bad word. Book schmivaways on Sunday. I try to do 2 every Sunday. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. I've got links in my bio, so please check them out. Tonight we have a special, a really unique kind of author. This is Gary. Pronounce your last name.
Balanoff.
Okay, I started to
It's
say
the Russian name, but I'm third generation, so far removed and a proud American.
I'm always scared I'm going to butcher him because I'm terrible with that. Gary Balanoff. He, y'all, this is interesting, is a male romance writer. So I couldn't wait to pick his brain. I'm sure he can teach all of us women something. So before we get
thank
started,
you, Casey.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I started by trying to write a memoir because I had many years as a TV news reporter, and I figured I've met so many interesting and inspiring people, astronauts, governors and senators, political people, and so on, and the president. And you figure, well, some of those people were inspiring, some unfortunately not so much. But I think we need as much inspiration as we can. I mean, if there was ever a time in our history where it just feels like there are people fighting with each other more than caring for each other, it's now. But there's still a lot of care out there. So I wanted to kind of shine a spotlight on some of the people who nobody knows about. They've just done things, and it wasn't written down anywhere. It wasn't recorded in a book or a movie or anything else, but they're many heroes. So I started to do that, but it's been such a long process because once you include somebody, then, you can't leave out this person and so on. So I had to write slowly but surely, and I'm still working on it. But in the meantime, I decided, and I also was in real estate for 40 years. So I had some interesting episodes there as you go through recessions and ups and downs and, prices doubling in a very short period of time and interest rates doubling in that time. So just the characters that I ran across, I thought I can probably write some fiction. So what should I do? Okay. I'm not a sci-fi writer. I have never met an alien. Okay. I don't have experience with space aliens. I was never abducted. Although I covered the Ted Bundy capture and trials, I don't know that I could really write a good crime novel, although I am kind of side working on one of those. But in the meantime, I studied the genres, and I found that romance is the most read genre in all of writing.
Yeah.
And I also studied and found that about 8 to 10% at any given time of the authors and readers are men, and the other 90 to 92% are women. So why is this? We experience romance as men, although I think a lot of women kind of think we don't. I had one reader tell me, I don't know how you write this because men are just heat-seeking missiles.
Oh my!
And so I had to, I had to laugh because it's not funny. It's not funny. She didn't mean it to be funny, but she realized it came out that way. So I said,
Right.
if you don't mind, I'm going to use that in my next novel because the character is going to say that because of her experiences. So I gather from a variety of people. I've met thousands of people in my life, men and women, and I think what I'm trying to do is we all, as authors, obviously you do, and any author does, any singer, any actor, you have to be able to entertain. You have to be able to, in the book, make people want to turn the page and find out what happens next. And I think on top of that, I try to add a heavy dose of inspiration. So in other words, you put people in realistic but very difficult situations, trauma situations, coming out of trauma, coming out of relationship crisis, coming out of separation, coming out of all kinds of problems. And then how do they make it? How do they get to it? And I think hopefully, because the only rule in romance writing is there must be either a happily ever after or a happy for now. And so I give you one of the two, guaranteed. So if you read any of my books, that's what you'll find. But along the way, there will be some moments of crisis and moments of trauma, and a lot of it has to do with unpeeling. So, in other words, the reader finds out things. Why did he act that way? Or why did she do that? And then the next chapter, you'll find out. So it's just very slowly done. And so it becomes, almost all of mine are slow burn. So it's more a buildup. I'm not good at enemies to lovers. I'm very good at friends to lovers. I'm very good at chance meetings that turn into something that is now coffee and then becomes something more. So, and you mentioned Too Soon for Love, because that's the book that we kind of were discussing. That's a book that I hope everybody enjoys, but you'll need a box of Kleenex with that, and it needs to be full. You need to rip the top off and just have it at your side.
Okay. Well, you and I sound very similar in our writing styles, because most all of mine are slow burn. There's a few that are, instant love. But yeah, I mean, I call my book my ministry, because they're about sort of real people, not real in real life, but real life people who are going through hell and back, and put through hell and back, and how did they survive, and what inspired them, and what kept them going. And it gives us inspiration, it gives us encouragement that, don't give up, because it might be the light right around the corner. Just got to hang in there.
That's right.
For those meeting you for the first time, just tell us a little bit about yourself beyond the author bio. Who is Gary Balanoff, and when you're not writing?
Yeah, well, as I say, I basically retired. My wife and I retired a couple of years ago, and she was a university administrator for about 45 years. And she was a university vice president, and before that, college vice president, and so on. So had a lot of experience, and we met at the University of Florida, which had just gone off campus with their newspaper and was independent at that point, the Independent Florida Alligator. And she was a night editor, and I was a reporter at first, and then I became like editorial editor and so on. And I met her one time. I was taking back a story, and said, "Can you correct this?" and so on. Yes, I can. And she got it done. It was another couple of years before we started going out. You have the college experience, and she dated other people. I did too, but yet she seemed to have. And this is kind of why I write slow burn, because I know it better, firsthand. But after we got married, I was a TV news reporter in Tallahassee when the Chi Omega murders were committed. So that was a fiasco. But walking across campus there 2 nights after the murders, and seeing women they were warned not to even go out, but sometimes they had to go from dorm to library or something like that, and the photographer that was with me was a man, and I was a man, and they were looking suspiciously, even though he was carrying his camera, big, with a station logo and everything on it. And I had a microphone in my hand, and it was eerie. And so things like that, covering the first 9 space shuttle launches and being 3 miles from the actual launch pad when the ground was rumbling, fascinating stuff, and interviewing the astronauts and everything else, fascinating. But the TV business being what it is, that back then they only had 3 stations in town. It was an NBC, CBS, and ABC, and in every city. And this is before Fox. This is before cable news. This is before CNN and MSNBC and everything else. So there were only 3. And what was happening was, when they started to go to cable, there was right-wing news and left-wing news. And I wanted to do news, just the way I'd been taught in journalism school to do it. In other words, Gary, you may have an opinion, but you better not tell anybody about it, because you're not supposed to have an opinion. And then it broke down.
It's not in news anymore.
Yeah, so it broke down, and so I decided I would get into real estate and see how that worked. And 40 years later, to the day, I retired. I owned a Remax for 20 years. I started it from scratch, and we became one of the top 1% of all the companies in the Orlando area. So we were competing with the big boys, and we had 45 agents, and we were kicking out about $150 million at a time when the average sales price was about $250, and it's tripled since then. But but we had a group of just terrific agents, and that was a lot of fun. But the recession hit, and we had to redo everything. And I finally sold the company and decided, I'm gonna do something else now. So that's why I got into writing, and it's kind of coming full circle. So my wife is my copy editor again, and my books are fiction rather than nonfiction. But I'm gonna get the memoir out someday. So if you hang in there long enough, you'll be able to see it.
It's all about timing. You're not done with that memoir yet. That's why you haven't finished it. So, was there a defining moment when you realized that you thought, "Hey, I could write novels"?
Yeah, well, and what I did was when I focused in on romance and saw that there are just so few. I mean, Nicholas Sparks is doing okay for himself, and there are a couple of others, but frankly, it's just a very small number. You can count on both hands probably how many people are out there actually having any success. So I thought, well, I'm going to read the women bestsellers. I'm going to read the Colleen Hoovers and the Emily Henrys and the Allie Hazelwoods and the Lori Gilmores and so on. And I thought to myself, they're good writers. There's nothing wrong with any of it. But I thought, I could do that. I could write creative stories about people and personalities and everything else that would be strong. I really believe in having a very strong male and female character to get through it, because I saddle them with so many issues that if they're not strong, they won't make it. And this is what hopefully will give hope to anybody that's reading it, because I don't know if you run into this, but I have run into so many lonely people, and we're more isolated now. We have TikTok, we have Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and everything else, but the problem is that's remote. We're talking live, but you're across a screen from me and our guests. So, it's different than when we're actually face to face and needing to interact. And we're going to say things sometimes online that we wouldn't say if we were standing there talking to somebody. And it's a shame. I mean, I try to be authentic, but I think everybody gets a little bit bolder in how they express themselves if there's no real lashback. But if you're talking to somebody and you say something insulting, that's not good. You've just cut off that person, and that's just not acceptable. So my hope is that we can create situations that keep anybody from feeling what's really bad, because you can be alone, you can be single, no problem, live happily ever after, but you cannot, I would argue, feel unlovable. And there are a lot of people, I'm afraid, who've gotten to the point where they've had such bad relationships, they've had such bad friendships, things have just broken apart, and it's painful. And so the strong find ways to just recuperate and realize it's not all about me. And what I've found is sometimes by reaching out and not internalizing everything, and it's difficult to do, but it's not about me, it's about you. So what can we do to make your life better? And by giving something like that, your life does get better. I guarantee it. So if you want to feel better about yourself, go to a food pantry, go to a homeless shelter, go to a church, volunteer, just a couple hours, and do something to make somebody's life better that needs it. And you will think, well, I'm down on my luck, and I've got a credit card bill and everything else, but you will feel better, because for every person out there, you're better off than 90% of the world in terms of, economically and probably socially. So, and you may find somebody there that clicks with you. And whether that's a friend or whether that's a new romance relationship or whatever, you now have something in common with them that can't be replaced.
Yeah. And honestly, that you tapped into one reason why I started this channel, because I'm not going to get into my story, but I'm single, 62 and single, and wasted the last 30 years of my life on someone that didn't work out. So I have been writing full time for 3.5 years, but I started this channel because I was pushing other indie authors out on my personal author channel so much that I confused the algorithm, and it was just messing all my views up, messing, everything up. And so I started this, and I've enjoyed having it separated, and I've enjoyed, now that I created this, I actually created a few other things too I haven't rolled out, but I have a website and everything for indie author access. But helping other indie authors to reach their goal, because I had people that reached down and helped me, and I haven't reached any kind of plateau to brag about at all. At all. But I've published 11 novels, so I'm probably
that's about 10 more than most people have done. So
yeah, probably.
I'm proud of you.
And thank you. And I've been on here for on TikTok for a little over a year, and so I've built my author platform up. And so I thought, well, now it's time for me to turn around and help other authors who are just starting out, just writing, or just getting on TikTok. And so I really, really enjoyed doing that, and it has helped too, because exactly like you said, when you're helping someone else, first of all, you're going to immediately find that there's people out there a heck of a lot worse off than you are. No matter how bad off you are, there's someone out there who's got it worse. They're going through something worse. And then second of all, I think we're just humanly made that when you're helping someone else achieve something, then I like the way Zig Ziglar put it. He said, when you'll always get everything you want when you help enough other people get what they want. And I love that philosophy. I've always kind of lived by that. But back to you. I just wanted to say you were on the right track with everything you're saying.
Thank you.
You've now written several books. Looking back, how has your writing changed from your first novel to Too Soon for Love?
Well, the first one, and anybody on their first one, and you can relate to this probably, is that you think it's good because you worked so hard to get it out there. And then now I look back on that first one a year later, and I thought, oh, this is just embarrassing. It is. The story wasn't embarrassing, but the way I told it was embarrassing to me, because that's where
embarrassing about it. Because when I look back at mine, it was the editing, and I ran it through AutoCrit once I picked up AutoCrit about 3 years ago, and I was fine with it then. I still have people who love it. So was it the story, the plot, the writing, the editing? Yeah. What about it made you happy with it?
Well, and I think because my wife is very good at making sure that the punctuation and but she reads so much. She reads 20 or 30 books a month. So she's an experienced, her Kindle is smoking at any given time. And so she knows how to do it. But she finds things in bestsellers that are grammatically incorrect, that, have the wrong hair color or eye color or anything else later in the book. And it's kind of like, were you even paying attention when you figured out who this character was and what they looked like and how they felt? And so I've improved dramatically in that. And I try to sketch out everything, but I am definitely, even though I do an arc and I do characters and everything else, I am definitely a pantser. For those who are not familiar with that, pantsers are the ones who just write. And I believe and I've read, serious articles that, authors have written. And for the most part, the best advice I ever got was you can't edit a blank page. So the point is, I just write. I get up at about 5:30 in the morning, and I find I'm a creative person at that time of day. So I let my wife sleep, and I'm just typing away for a couple of hours, and I may write 2,000, 3,000 words in that time. And I get that down, and instead of going back over later in the day every single word to make sure it's right, I figure I've got time for that. I want this plot to develop. I want the conversations to become more and more a part of what these characters are. I want the action to flow and then stop for a moment and give somebody a time to breathe and then go full speed ahead again. So I think the pacing is much better, in books 3, 4, and 5 than it was in book 1 or even 2. But I have some exciting stuff going on. The second book did so well that I actually talked to somebody on TikTok who had experience in screenwriting, and she said, I love that book, and I think it would be a good movie. And so I thought, well, we're a long way from producing it, but we're having a meeting next week about, and she's out in California, so we're just having a video chat, but trying to make it into something because it's visually, I think, going to be very entertaining because it's about music and about a competition and about a cross-country love affair. And I think it could have a lot of dramatic moments that her friend, who's her, buddy and co-singer on the duet, just, very, very strong characters. And so we're going to try to do that. But again, by the new ones, I've got the trilogy coming out over the rest of the summer. And it was a challenge because as you've found in writing more than one book in a series, you have to have something to tell. And I had to leave the first ending on a cliffhanger. And so that people would presumably read the second one to find out, well, wait a second now, how did she do in the Olympics and so on? And, is their relationship going to hold together the way it's supposed to, or what's going to happen there? And we just throw all kinds of wrinkles in there that I've seen happen in real people's lives. And how did they handle it? How do these characters handle it, and go from there?
I wanted to put a little plug in for my friend who's listening, Charmin McGraw. She writes fiction, fantastic fiction, but she also does these, thank you. She also does these writer workshops and workbooks, and they are phenomenal. And she has 5 of them so far. She's doing more by genre, whatever you're writing, but they help you with the things you were just talking about, like when you do a character profile, there are hair color, eye color, stuff like that. And it also has a chapter summary, so you can put like a basis of what went on in that chapter. So if you're looking for something, they are so thorough. It's unbelievable. She sent me one just to preview, and it's amazing. Like, I literally recommend it to all writers now because they're so good. Charmin McGraw downstairs. So make sure you're following her and check out those books. Very, very helpful to keep you. I'm a pantser too. I think most writers are. I do like a rough outline, but these little books help you just really get organized and plug it in. Drew and Samantha seem to fall for each other almost immediately. Do you believe in love at first sight, or is that simply right for these characters? Because you mentioned you do.
Drew did, but Samantha had been through a tough breakup and really, really did not want to get involved. So, we can have coffee, we can go to the beach, we can have a good time, but we're not going to do anything too romantic. And, there's kind of that, 3-date rule before now men and women try to figure out, okay, are we really going to stick with this, or we just pass and be friends or whatever? And for her, it was much longer than that. The pain from the last, just, she liked the guy, but, is this going to be somebody I can stay with? And then the moment of truth hits, and I think the readers will have so far enjoyed reading that segment where she finds her heart. And but I will say this, a lot of the people who read this book got to read the whole thing, because it's filled with tragedy, and some people just give up at that point and figure, well, this isn't a romance at all. But Too Soon for Love relates to, did Drew fall too fast? Did Samantha not fall fast enough? Because she's putting him off for months. And, it's kind of like, are we ever going to get to the finish line here and have an actual romance? And then, something terrible happens because illness happens in her life, and, she's passes away. I'll give the spoiler alert. So, but the problem is, the Too Soon for Love is, as Drew is kneeling at his wife's grave 2 years later to the day, he's saying a prayer. And some of my work is almost spiritual in its nature, because I'll freely admit I believe in God. I believe in the power of God. And I think prayer does work. It doesn't, we don't always get the answers we want because we're human and God is God. So there you go.
But by the grace of God, we don't get the answer we wanted.
Exactly. It's not always yes. He'll give us an answer, but maybe no is actually the right answer. So he has to figure out if this woman that comes up behind him and who is laying flowers on his, wife's grave is a friend. and she turns out to be, and they have to go through the process of discovering how to recognize Samantha's life in so many ways. And so the rest of the story, I mean, the last half of the book is it too soon to fall in love with this person, or is she just helping out to be able to help the memory of the wife? And so, and it becomes a hard thing because Sarah has been through a divorce. She was cheated on at a very young age, and should she do anything more than just be a friend with a guy? And how many women have been through that? How many men have been through it? But I mean, women have been through it, I think, more devastatingly, if that's a proper use of it, and it stays with them. So it's a too soon for love question mark, because I really believe most people somewhere along the way have asked that question. It's kind of like why I called my last book Trust Issues. Who has not faced trust issues, either in government or another person or a relationship, friendship, whatever? Is it?
Yeah.
I got trust issues about
I don't
this.
think you can make it to 20 years old nowadays without having trust issues.
Yeah.
I wanted to interject real quick because we're about halfway through.
Sure.
I'm author Casey Mitchell. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for joining us. This is author Gary Balanoff. Did I say that right? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
you're fine.
I know I have to stop and ask every time because I don't want to butcher it.
That's okay.
Anyway, he is a male romance writer, and so I really wanted to pick his brain tonight and see what he knows that we don't know. Maybe we can learn from. Someone from underneath, when you were talking earlier, asked, "Are the books spicy?
Mhm.
Do you have any spice in your books?"
I walk right up to a fine line. It's closed door. I think
I appreciate that. I don't like that.
I don't make it smutty. And the main reason for that is I have a wife and a daughter and 4 granddaughters.
I love that.
Got a son too, but I'm writing for him as well because I want him as a male to actually read my stuff too. And they've been supportive all along. But I think as you come of age, it's not about the graphic scenes. At least it isn't for me, because that's not love. And is there a difference? And I've tried to answer that question in the characters between what is love and what is lust. Immediate attraction. When you said first love at first sight, it's probably lust at first sight. I mean, because you can't truly love somebody without actually knowing anything about them except how they look. And so that's how I write, though, because it does become evident that there will be, relationship that involves that, but it's not going to be stated in words.
Right. Your story asks whether love can survive life's unexpected tragedies. Have your own life experiences influenced the emotional depth of the novel?
Yeah, there's so many things that happen along the way. I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic when I was 3 years old, so I don't know a time that I didn't have to eat right, take insulin, and so on. And just the treatment over those years, I was pretty brittle because I played a lot of sports when I was a kid, and into high school and so on. And I even did moderate, amount of team activities even after I got out of college and everything. But that was difficult for me. I one time in high school collapsed on the basketball court, and I was fortunate that one of my teammates' dads was a physician, and so when they rushed in the paramedics, they were giving me oxygen and checking my blood pressure and everything. And Danny goes, "He needs sugar. He needs sugar right now. Here's a pack of a candy bar or whatever that I had with me." And I didn't have the presence of mind to even be able to eat it. But they said no, and they shoot him away because he's a high school kid. What does he know? They're the trained paramedics. And my dad arrived at the game, and he said, "No, he needs sugar. Get him some sugar." Fortunately, because I don't know, I might not be here to talk to you if I hadn't done that. But that's a trauma. That's a medical trauma, and it's different from cancer or heart attack or whatever else. But it's in my family. My grandmother had to have both legs amputated, and my dad and mom moved her in when she had to have the amputation, so she could have her own space, the built on basically a wing of the house that was a grandma quarters, so that she could wheel through and do it easily and have her own, cooktop and everything that was the right height and so on. So I learned about that, and that's why we both, my wife and I, had moms that needed, after the dads died, and both my mother-in-law and my mother at separate times moved in with us for a while, and so the caring for an elder patient and parent, I think was part of what, kind of the emotional baggage that I carry with me, but I do it proudly because I think there are a lot of caregivers out there who are doing a great job and taking care of a parent or an elder relative. And I'm going to be introducing some of that in my writing. I did a little bit of it in this trilogy because of a stepfather death, and what does she, was the main character who's young and in college, do for her mom. So there's all kinds of things like that I think can be brought out. But yeah, I have had experiences in my life that have been tough and that are reflected, not frame for frame,
Right.
page by page, but reflected.
Yeah, taking that experience and then putting it on the character for what they're going through.
Right.
Without giving away spoilers, was there a scene in this book that surprised you emotionally while you wrote it?
Well, the scene with Drew and Sarah at the grave, I can't read that even now. I mean, you go over your book over and over again before you publish it. But I cried more than once, and I'm a guy. I'm not supposed to cry, but when I got it to the point where it made me cry,
you had it right.
I had it right. I had it right. It was very emotional, and you could see from both of their characters what that would feel like. And that was important because I think the more we can get across that feeling in words, because you don't have the beauty of a movie producer who can, director or whatever, that can show the facial emotion and so on. You have to describe all of that, and it's challenging, but I think we got it right there. That scene, and I've become pretty good at proposal scenes. I won't tell you what I did personally because that's private, but I will say I try to reflect the romantic nature of a proposal, which is supposed to be for a lifetime, and it often isn't, but that it needs to be something powerful, and that everybody who reads it is going to say, "Oh, wow," and then take a pause, look away for a moment, and then go back to reading.
Yeah, yeah. I always say I'm thrice divorced. So I always say, those who can do and those who can't teach. So in my case, those who can marry and those who can't write about it. But yeah, for
it's
me,
okay. You are loved by your readers, and it's okay. It's okay. Your friends, it's okay.
My 90-year-old mother that lives with me loves me, so my 3 kids and my grandkids love me. But
and they've been with you longer, so it's okay. Yeah. Mom has been with you her whole life, so it's okay.
But I always say there's a couple of moments in a love story to me that should be memorable. One is the proposal, and one is the wedding, and then if there's other like children born, stuff like that. But there's certain moments that you're supposed to remember them, in your own life, in your personal life, for the rest of your life. But in a book, it should have that moment. Which character challenged you the most when you were writing it?
Well, I do have a man's brain. I've lived with a man's brain my whole life. So this is why I study other books, to find out how women write women, because I don't want to copy that, because I want to write it from a different perspective. But I have to find ways of being able to portray what women's minds are doing. And I don't want to make it too just too lockstep and too idiosyncratic. What happens is I think I can portray what the guy is thinking pretty much throughout and saying, because I've either been there or I know guys who have been in that exact situation. For women, it's a little bit more difficult. And I think part of the problem is it's kind of like the Jeff Foxworthy joke where he says, women, I've heard you women talking. You say, well, I'd like to know what he's thinking. Yeah, I'd like to know that too. What do you think he's really thinking? And the joke is, well, ladies, I'm going to tell you what we're really thinking. I'd like a beer and I'd like to see something naked. Now, it's a joke. It's a joke. But frankly, I laugh at it because it's not true. And that's the beauty of it. It's not true. But it's true that men have a nothing cell in their brain, and some men have larger nothing cells. And so when a woman says, well, what are you thinking about, honey? Well, nothing. And they think we're somehow lying because, they don't have the capability of doing that because as a woman, every woman I know has to put together schedules and routines and, what's going to be eaten for dinner. Even if he makes it, she's got to kind of do the grocery planning or something along the way to make this work. And the kids from school and picking up so-and-so and it just gets frantic. And so without checklists and phone logs and everything else, women are thinking about multiple things at the same time. Men have the ability to think about very little. And they may think about work. I got to get to work and I got to do these projects and everything else. But when I get home, oh boy, I'm going to watch the ball game. And then my mind goes blank and I can just literally think about nothing, not about tomorrow, not about later that night. I just, whatever. So that's what I try to make sure that I make the women somewhat complicated because it replicates what they have to actually go through and juggle a lot of things and juggle situations and feelings and work and school and everything else. So, God love you people because it's like men, we would have disappeared a long time ago as a society if there weren't really strong women along the way.
I appreciate you saying that. That's very nice. And a couple of people downstairs said that they love me too. So I love y'all too. Thank you. I am not feeling unloved. I promise you. I don't need a man to feel whole. I finally figured that out. So I feel very loved. Don't worry about me.
That's good. That's good.
Which character feels the most like you? As an author, we always put a little bit of ourselves, I think, in all of our characters, but there's always one character in particular that just does a little bit more you. Which character is that?
Well, in Too Soon for Love, it was Drew. I mean, I will, he's not me at all, but I will say in terms of the romantic attachment, before I got married, I was a serial monogamist. I was not one to just play the field and just be dating one girl one time and one girl another time or whatever. I had a steady girlfriend, and then for whatever reason, it just, wouldn't work. And so next steady girlfriend, and then wife for 48 years. So that's just how I roll. So but I think for Drew, when he lost Samantha, he really felt like life was over. The only thing he was living for was his adopted son. That was it. If he could make him at least happy in some fashion and get through school, and he figured he would be alone the rest of his life. And so if he could make sure the little guy was okay, then he'd be fine. And I think I would be that way if my wife passed, and especially if I had one of the kids with me at that time, it would be very much like how I would react to it. But, he was different that way and felt like he finally should probably get back into the game because he was still in his 30s. I mean, he wasn't, he was a young man. So he had things that he wanted to do with his life, and he wanted to do them with somebody instead of alone.
That's great. What's one misconception people have about writing romance?
Well, I think possibly that it needs to go straight from stranger to powerful love affair, like pretty quickly in some way. In other words, but it's a straight line. It doesn't have any dips and ebbs and flows and stuff. And reality says there are going to be dips and ebbs and flows because the better you get to know somebody, the more you uncover not only their goodness, but sometimes quirks and bad things, because we're all sinners on this bus. And so we have weaknesses that are then exposed, and both men and women have those weaknesses. And if you're not in tune, it can become a very difficult thing. And so for a romance reader who wants to get to a conclusion that's satisfying and relatable, you don't, if you go through too many of them, that's kind of the challenge that all of us have, is how do you make sure that there's a challenge, and maybe it's a serious challenge, and maybe it's a crushing challenge that could break one or both of the individuals, but how do you get through? There may be a very narrow path to be able to survive all of that. I mean, literally survive. And what can you do to overcome and find fulfillment, find redemption, find love in its purest form? And I think it's there for a lot of people. Maybe not for everybody, but I think there is a soulmate out there for every individual on earth. I think that's one thing that I don't know that God has promised us, but I kind of believe that. I kind of believe that there is a person that you can relate to. And it may not be a spouse necessarily, because some people don't need to get married to do that. But they need to have somebody that they're close to, that they can relate to, and that they can talk to on the most intimate terms. They can say anything, and it won't drive the other person away.
Right. Be loved anyway. I think that's probably what we all want. And I've always said, because I'm a Christian, that there's a Jesus-sized hole inside of all of us, because we all want that unconditional agape love. And of course, God isn't here, so we might be able to hear him speak through, his word or whatever. But we want that tangible person that we, sleep with and we hear snore in the middle of the night or whatever, that still loves us unconditionally and gives us that same kind of agape love that we're looking for. Really, we're looking for it from God. Exactly. But, we want, because we're humans, we want another human to feel that way too. It's very rare to find, though. Very few people, I think. I know a lot of people that have been married a long time. I've only known a handful of people that were truly happily married that have been married a long time. So I think it's, it's a gift, and it's a gift that you have to have two people that can come together, that they are on the same page and maybe communicate in the same way, like not in the same way, but where it's complementary, of each other. Yeah. I think it's wonderful. And you could probably say a lot more about that, being married 48 years, than me. I'm the last person to listen to. But to me, that's what we all, male and female, are looking for, is that other, not half of ourselves, but that person that kind of fills that void.
Yeah. Well, I think as much as anything, we have to find ways to evolve, because I'm not the same as I was when I got married. I'm not. I mean, and she's not either. So I think if you look back and you say, oh, our romance and what led up to it and everything else was just beautiful, it was. But I mean, come on. I mean, you're not going to look at things the same at 40, at 50, at 60, at 70 now. I mean, I'm 70 years old. So I mean, I know I'm not a 30-year-old guy. Well, here's the thing. I'm 30-40, and I'm going to be 30-41 this year. I'm always in my 30s that way.
I like
Just
that.
add whatever it is. So after 39, I've turned 40. No, I've turned 30-10. So if you keep that in mind and you try to just stay healthy, and you challenge your mind as well as your body to be able to, do a certain amount of exercise, and you keep your brain. I do Wordle every day. I don't know about you. It's, some people like to do crossword puzzles, but Wordle to me, because I'm in the kind of the word business now. I mean, it's like, take this 5-letter word and just guess it within 6 guesses. It's harder than you think, but it challenges you, and so we've got to keep challenging ourselves. And as a result, I think sometimes we tend to fall for people who do, like you said, fill in the blank. In other words, it's not that opposites attract necessarily, but we see things in the other person that we wish we were more like. So I'm very outgoing. My wife is quieter. She's very organized. I am not. So we need each other to be able to not be in a rut, because if you had two very organized people all always criticizing each other, but I'm more organized than you. You didn't make that checklist to have these 2 items on it. She knows I'm disorganized, and she knows checklists help me. So she, when she's planning a trip, she's got the TripIt, and here's your list of excursions, and then all I have to do is carry the luggage. It's a wonderful thing, and get on the plane, and
then we're back to men thinking nothing, and women are going, okay, you need to pack this, you need to do that.
Yeah, well, she knows exactly what she needs, and she makes a packing list based on whether we're going to Norway or Hawaii.
Oh,
it's different packing lists.
For sure. Has one of your characters ever completely refused to follow your outline?
Yes. I hate it when I have to slap them around sometimes. I feel they're saying things that they shouldn't be saying. Yeah. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's better. Sometimes, this is going to sound ridiculous to most people who have not tried to write a book, but you're helping train authors. So I would admit freely that there are some times when I'll write a whole arc, of the story, and then I'll go off because of one conversation that they have, and it leads them to a different conclusion, which leads them to a different action, which leads them to a different chapter next. Yeah. And so I look back at the end of my complete writing, and I say, well, how did this compare to the arc? It's different. But hopefully it's better, because I look at the arc and I'm going, that wasn't as good as it could have been. Oh, wait, I wrote something different now.
I think I started nodding before you even answered, because every single author that I've asked that has said the same thing. Oh, yes, these actors are not actors, but these characters have a mind of their own. And I have to tell this funny story, because Richard is one of the main characters in the entire series I'm writing right now. And I'm writing his book now. Each book is about a different agent. And so I'm writing Richard's book now, and he's the head command person. And so I saved him for last. But so I always like the last paragraph or two at the end of a book, I'll kind of set up the next book. And so I was doing that, but I really wasn't sure exactly what the next book was going to be. I hadn't outlined it. I hadn't thought a whole lot about it. I was still focused on book 4. Anyway, Richard got up at a wedding is at the end of that book and just completely surprised me. I mean, I'm just like, wait a minute, you just announced this and you didn't even run it by me first. And so I went to, my mother's my biggest fan. So I went to the other room with her when I finished the book, because that was at the last couple of paragraphs of the book. And I said, Richard just completely threw a monkey wrench in my entire plan for him. I don't know what I'm going to write about him now. And I had to completely change book 5 because of this announcement that Richard made at this wedding. I guess he'd had to drink. I don't know. But I was just like, Richard, what? And then literally today I was writing and he did the same thing. I'm at 75% of writing book 5 and he just makes this announcement. I'm like, Richard, I swear to you, if you do this to me again. But I love him. He's my favorite character in the whole series, and I couldn't wait to get to his book, and I love it, and I love him. But I tell you what, he definitely has a mind of his own.
Well, so, it's funny because you come up with ideas in different ways, and I came across something that I hope all of your listeners and viewers are gonna like, because if you're authors, you'll appreciate this. I get at least minimum of 3 book marketers contacting me every single day, and sometimes as many as 5 or 6. And because I'm in sales. I mean, I would like people to buy books, just like before for 40 years I wanted them to buy houses and sell houses through me. Right. You can't be rude to them, so I don't just delete. That's probably a mistake and it wastes a lot of my time, but I'm not that kind of person. So I'll write back to that marketer, thanks anyway, but I'm working on it, or I have somebody working on it, which I do, so that's fine. But I'm getting to the point where I'm creating now a Christmas novel that will have every trope known to humankind. So it will have fake dating. It will have a book marketer who is Miss Sunshine. It will have a grumpy guy who is the author, who resembles me but is not me. It will have the overbearing rich parents, a younger brother and sister who are an attorney in the dad's firm and a doctor, and they're both married and younger than Grumpy Gus. So how does everything resolve? You're going to have to read the book to find out. But it has just a world of tropes, combined into one. And I want to see how it'll play out because I've already got some of the conversations and the key moments and everything already plotted out. But I've got to finish the third book in the trilogy before I can do that. But I'm hoping to have it out in plenty of time for Christmas buyers to be able to scoop it up because it's going to be a kind of authors, I think, will love it because they'll say, oh, those marketers are everywhere, aren't they? The marketers will like it because they go, man, I've been turned down a lot. And the marketer will find the same thing. And she still maintains her poise and everything else. And she and her sister were named after Little Women. So it's going to be Charlotte and Emily. Named after the Bronte sisters. So it'll have just so many themes throughout it. I will try to just keep it all straight so that you can mostly laugh, but also realize that love does exist in the most unlikely places.
That sounds cute. Is that your next project? That was my next question. What's next? Is that your next project? Are you working on?
Once I finish hopefully the trilogy will be out completely by September, maybe October at the latest, and then I will have already hopefully finished the Christmas romance by certainly the end of October because I know people like to kind of do their Christmas shopping for their book club friends and so on. And I'm hoping to get into more book clubs because I enjoy just doing what we're doing, talking, whether it's in person or online with a group of people who just love reading.
Yeah, I love that too. So I have two questions that I end every interview with, but before I get to that, because we're almost out of time,
Sure.
Tell us, first of all, and you use the spy words because TikTok's listening and they won't let you say, you have to say the Zon instead of the rainforest, something like that. Tell us where we can find your books and where you would prefer for us to shop for your books. Do you have them? Do you sell direct signed books throughout your site?
Well, I have my own website, GaryBalanoff.com. Just put in my name and then .com, and I've got links to every book on the source of the publisher. And there will be I can't do discounts because I don't make anything because it has to go directly, print to, by that order. So I don't make anything extra, but if you go there, it'll get complete bios on everything, on me, on, my book giveaways.
They get signed copies from that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll be able to get everything and even kind of previews of what's next. And if anybody wants the monthly updates, I have a newsletter that goes out at the beginning of every month, and I'll be more than happy to update people. And there's a place at the bottom that most people say, if you want the newsletter, give me your email here. I call it a love note. So if somebody wants a love note from Gary,
newsletter on your site.
It's the newsletter. Yeah, it's the newsletter. So
okay.
Everything's on GaryBalanoff.com, so you can get the book, look over what the information on it and what appeals to you. Because I've got a rom-com, I've got a couple of deep meaning kind of things, and I've got a fun one. So it's kind of like I'm testing a lot of different ways of telling stories, and I think no matter whether you're heavy romance, light romance, somewhere in between, or just laugh until you cry. I try to put humor into everything because that's kind of part of my life. If I don't laugh at some of it, I am going to cry.
No, right. I think we're all in that boat.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I'm a multi-genre writer, so I do appreciate a variety because I like reading different genres. And I like writing different genres because I don't love any one single genre so much that I never want to read anything else. And so I just, I've had a few people ask me, why do I write multiple genres? And well, one, all my books are based on dreams I had, and I don't dream in one genre. But two, I think I would get completely bored with something if I wrote it constantly, So I do appreciate that they're different.
I use dreams a lot, Cam. It's interesting because I do think that when the mind shuts down, it's not really shutting down because in deep REM sleep, some of the most telling dreams come out. And you start imagining things in a more fantastic way. And that's why I think some of the fantasy writers, do some of that too. So it becomes like a dreamlike world. And I admire that. I think you do great work with that. But I wanted to let people know I believe in that very firmly. I think they're dreams that do mean something.
Well, I personally feel like that God sent me these dreams because I would
Yeah.
never be writing. My very first book, I woke up and I thought, oh my gosh, that would make a good book. And I remember telling my husband at the time and my daughter, who was 13 at the time, she's 39 now, about the dream. And they're like, oh my gosh, that'd make a great movie. And Oprah Winfrey should play Annie Mae. I mean, we were there at breakfast figuring the whole thing out. And it was, about a year later, I ended up writing that book. And literally, pretty much every book I've written since, the premise of it, the last safe house was the dream that I had. And I woke up and I thought, oh my God, I had the whole thing like it was in my dream, like I'd watched a movie. I wrote down everything I could remember about it. But of course, the next 4 books in that series, I had to come up with that concept, whatever. But I don't know. I get bored easily anyway. And to me, to read the same thing, I read nonfiction, I read memoirs, I read fiction, I read, all different genres except horror. So I can't read horror. And I used to read horror, but I can't read horror anymore. So yeah, I appreciate the fact that you shake it up a little bit, and it's not the same.
Yeah, I think there are times to be serious and there are times to be funny. And if you can laugh enough, I remember the basketball coach who was dying of cancer, Jim Valvano, who said every day if you can laugh, if you can cry, and if you can help somebody, it's a good day.
Have a good day. I like that. I like that. Anything that you want to say, maybe a question you were hoping I'd ask that I didn't ask, or something that readers always ask that you would ask?
I appreciate it. We've gone over a lot of stuff, and I would just say anybody that has any questions or anything else, just hit me up on the website, and I get back to people pretty quickly because when I was in real estate, I was very busy, but people were shocked that I'd actually answer the phone, or reply to their email within just a few minutes. And there were times when I couldn't because obviously if you're extremely busy, you're in the appointment. But when you're not, you need to get back to people and let them know that you care. So I care about all of my readers and you do too. So, whatever we can do to foster that relationship, I'm for.
Okay. With that said, thank you everyone that joined us today. I've got 2 more questions to ask you. They're very generic questions, but I like them. I like to finish with this. What is something small that brings you disproportionate joy?
My grandchildren. All 4 of them are just the most adorable human beings on earth. And I've talked to grandparents before when I was, younger, and I'd hear older people talking about their grandchildren and how wonderful they were. And oh, mine is doing this and that and everything else. And I thought, that's cute. That's sweet. And I get it. But there was nothing quite like having your own grandchildren that you could spoil and, hand back to mommy and daddy. And they had a little bit too much chocolate, so they'll be a little wired tonight, but that's okay. Good luck.
I forgot to premise that question with you can't use your children or grandchildren because we all are children or grandchildren.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I've always loved sports. I've always loved sports, so I enjoy my Florida Gators, even though they really stink. But I'm confident that this year the football team will make a grand comeback and at least come close to making the playoffs. That'd be great.
Eternal optimist. I like that. Oh, last question, then we'll end this for the night. Thank you so much for joining us. But what is your favorite word?
Favorite word? Wow, that's tough. Possible.
I like that.
I think anything is possible. I think you need to pray for what's possible and in your own life, and it may still limit you, but because we're limited because we're human beings. But I think you ought to dream big and make it possible.
Yeah, and I would add to that, pray for the impossible, because if that's what God's plan is for you, it might seem impossible to us, but as the scripture says, nothing is impossible through Christ. So pray for the impossible, pray for all those blessings, and get those fish nets open and ready to gather all those fish. Gary, I've enjoyed you so much. It's wonderful. I can't wait to read your books. The only regret, not regret, that's the wrong word. I don't know what the word is. So speaking of words, I don't know what the word is, but I wish that I read really quickly so that I could read everyone's books prior to interviewing them. Usually what happens a month after I've interviewed you, I finally get, up to your book is up on my TBR. So I can't wait to read your books. They sound fascinating. And you and I sound very, very close kinship about how we write and what we write about and why we write and the depth of it. So I can't wait to read that. I appreciate you so much. And if you joined us tonight, thank you so much for sticking with us. And Amy's always here. Sharman's always here. A few others have popped in. RD popped in. So thank you all so much. I appreciate y'all. It would be fun talking to Gary all night, but it's much more fun seeing your comments and hearing from y'all. So see y'all next Friday. And I have a couple of announcements I've been trying to make for 3 or 4 days. I'm not going to make them on here. But stay tuned on this channel and my author channel. Oh, and by the way, if I didn't say this already, please follow Gary. Y'all, if you're not following me, follow me. But please follow Gary. Let's support him. He's an indie author. We all know being an indie author is not easy. It's 7 full-time jobs that we have to do daily. Sometimes switching hats every minute. So let's support our indie authors. Thank you all so much. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you all.
Nice to meet you, and I can't wait to read from you.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Don't hang up. I'm going to hang up on you because if you hang up first, you won't get your little 2 cents that you earned tonight.
Okay.
All right.
That's right. There's coins coming.
That's right. You got to get the coins. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.